Welcome to the Four Cardinal Points official channel. Four Cardinal Points organization is a multifaceted research and analysis center based in Istanbul, Turkey. Today, I'm glad to introduce you to a rather different but interesting view of power in international relations. The anatomy of geopolitical power. So we often reduce it to headlines, military buildups, trade sanctions, diplomatic summits. Yet geopolitical power is not a single act or instrument. It is an organism, complex, layered, and evolving. If we wish to understand it, and more importantly, to anticipate its future trajectories, we must dissect it. We must examine the anatomy of geopolitical power. At its foundation lie the structural conditions, the deep tissue that is often invisible in day-to-day analysis, yet decisive in shaping states' capabilities. Geography remains the most stubborn of this. Whether a state is landlocked or blessed with maritime access, endowed with fertile valleys or ringed by mountains, determines much about its strategic outlook. Consider how Britain's island geography fostered a naval tradition and an outward-looking trade policy, or how Russia's vast plains have historically invited both invasion and fixation on buffer zones. Alongside geography, demographics form the living cells of geopolitical potential. A youthful, skilled, and growing population can be a source of dynamism, as in India today. An aging, shrinking population can pose challenges, as in Japan or parts of Europe. Demographics interact with education, health, and migration flows to set the rhythm of a nation's ambitions. Then there are natural resources: oil, rare earths, water, arable land. Resource endowment is not destiny, but it is a strategic asset or vulnerability. The Arabian Peninsula's oil reserves transform the global economy. By contrast, resource scarcity can be a driver of dependence or conflict. And underpinning all of this is history and identity. The narratives nations tell us about ourselves and others. Historical memory can be a unifying force, a justification for territorial claims, or a source of deep mistrust across borders. On top of these foundations rest the core instruments of power, the muscles of our geopolitical body. These instruments operate in four interlinked realms that we're about to explore. The first is military power, the archetypal hard power, such as armed forces, alliances, nuclear deterrence, and increasingly cyber capabilities that offer coercion and protection. They are the visible deterrents, the steel in the scaffolding. The United States' 7th Fleet in the Pacific, for instance, NATO's collective defense commitments, or China's militarization of artificial islands in the South China Sea. All of these are military signals calculated to shape the behavior of others. Second, economic power or geoeconomics. Control over trade routes, the imposition of sanctions, the strategic allocation of investments, and the dominance of technological supply chains. All are potent levers. Economic interdependence is not inherently peaceful. It is a battlefield where market access can be weaponized and financial flows can be conditioned. Third, political power, the art of governance and diplomacy. This is not simply the signing of treaties, but the capacity to shape the rules of the game. States exercise political power in multilateral forums, in the crafting of international law, and in the formation of issue-specific coalitions. It is the capacity to persuade, to mediate, to legitimize one's actions in the eyes of the international community. Fourth, cultural power, the often underestimated soft power dimension. Language, media, education systems, religious influence, historical narratives, and even sports diplomacy are tools for shaping perceptions and affinities. The spread of Hollywood films, for instance, the global appetite for K-pop, the institutional presence of France's Alliance Française, or China's Confucius Institutes. These are not mere cultural curiosities. They are strategic assets in the competition for minds. But instruments alone do not define power. They require operational strategies, the nervous system that coordinates movement. A state may choose diplomatic maneuvering, building coalitions and resolving disputes in ways that maximize its standing. It may engage in economic leverage, offering development aid with strings attached, or using that diplomacy to secure influence. Military posturing, from joint exercises to strategic base placement, can serve as a signal of commitment or deterrence. And perhaps most critically, in our information-saturated age, states pursue narrative control, shaping the stories the world tells us about others and their rivals. In this sense, geopolitics is increasingly a contest over perception. All of this unfolds within an external environment that both constrains and enables. Alliances and rivalries provide structure. Global governance systems, from the United Nations to the World Trade Organization, offer arenas for competition and cooperation. The technological landscape can redefine the parameters of power as artificial intelligence and quantum computing threaten to upend traditional military and economic hierarchies. Cultural and ideological currents, whether nationalism, liberal internationalism, or religious revivalism, set the tone for international engagement. Finally, at the surface, we see the outcomes, the visible expressions of geopolitical power. These are the headlines, the drawing and redrawing of influence zones, the rise and fall of regimes, the securing of resource monopolies, the expansion of trade dominance, and the spread of cultural or ideological hegemony. But these outcomes are the product of all the deeper layers, the foundations, the instruments, the strategies, and the environment interacting over time. What is most important to grasp is that these layers are not static. Foundations can shift, demographics change, resources are discovered or depleted, histories are reinterpreted, instruments evolve, military capabilities adapt to new technologies, economic leverage adjusts to new trade patterns, cultural power reinvents itself with each generation. Strategies can be rewired overnight in response to crisis, and the external environment is in constant flux. If we neglect any one of layer in our analysis, we risk misunderstanding the whole. State may appear militarily weak, but wield formidable cultural influence. It may have rich resources, but lack the governance to leverage them. It may be geographically vulnerable, but strategically adept in coalition building. In short, the anatomy of geopolitical power is a system, integrated, adaptive, and prone to both incremental change and sudden shocks. As scholars, our task is to move beyond the episodic and the sensational to chart the interplay of these layers with both rigor and imagination. Only by doing so we can hope to anticipate not just the next move on the geopolitical chessboard, but the evolving shape of the board itself. So that has been all for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and engaging to your interests. And please do like this video. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get further notifications from us. And thank you very much again. Have a fantastic day.